To be a high performer, that means that you accomplish more than your peers and that you have an overall balanced life while working the same amount of time or less, and to be burnout proof. Now, can you do it both? And the answer is yes, you can. Because high performance and burnout proofing are not mutually exclusive, but they go hand in hand. And in today's episode, I will be joined by the passion and purpose coach Teany Hidalgo, who has helped many of her clients to find their place of Zen. And in addition, of course, I will give my insight as a high performance and a flow coach, as well as a neuroscientist, to unravel the art of high performance. Now, we will both first introduce ourselves, Tiani and I, and then talk about why you should care about burnout. Now, for example, do you know that hurry sickness is an actual freaking disease? Now, we will then dive into our personal stories and interview each other. So make sure to pick up on those gold nuggets. And finally, we will both show you a tool that you can use and that we use for our clients, in fact, to become a high performer while reducing overwhelm, stress, and anxiety. Now, as a side note, we will also clarify what productivity actually is, because there's a general misconception about the meaning of productivity, and I'm sure that watching this video will blow your freaking mind. Also, today's video will be part of a Q&A series in which we will dive deep and break with many of the dogmas in this world. Now, in this context, next episode, episode 2, will be about the topic of happiness. Now, if you have any questions for Tiani and myself, it could be the neuroscience of happiness, the psychology behind it, or whatever else is on your mind, then please just drop your questions in the comment section below. Just do it within the next 3 weeks, and we will make sure to answer all of your questions in the next Q&A session. And lastly, I got a neuroscience and psychology-backed high-performance course coming up in January 2022, so very soon, in fact. And if you want to go from zero to hero, have a breakthrough, live a new and more balanced life, or blow anyone else out of the water, whatever it takes style, then just contact me via email at niklas.p.reich@gmail.com until the 20th of December to secure your spot and a discount. Now, that said, spots are limited, so it's best to take this opportunity ASAP. Now, there will be a 100% money back guarantee, because I will personally ensure that you will leave this course as your very best self. Now, that said, be aware, this course is for serious people who want to change their lives. Now, we will apply neuroscience, for example, by optimizing the dopamine release in your brain for motivation, extreme focus, and flow, and dive deep into the psychology of high performance to make you an elite performer. And so, that said, I expect your full input. Now, in return, you will be rewarded with becoming better than ever before. Now, back to the video. If you're excited, please take a moment to smash this like and subscribe buttons so that we can build an army of high performance and neuroscience enthusiasts together. I would highly appreciate it. Now, my name is Niklas. I'm a neuroscientist, dementia researcher, as well as a high performance and flow coach. And this is how to become a high performer and burnout proof.
I'm so happy to be here. I am Tiani.
My name is Niklas.
And oh my gosh, so this is all about the Q&A on how to be high performance and avoid burnout. I'm super excited to be doing this live with you, Nicholas. I think we've been chatting for a little bit through LinkedIn, and we just discovered that we had so many things in common with the work that we do. And this live would be so much fun to do together, right?
Definitely. I mean, we've been commenting here and there, basically. I think it really kicked off when you made the comment. I think it was one of a meditation-based post, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
That's how this all started, basically, because I brought out my little publication about, again, the positive effects of meditation. And here we are now.
ended up becoming a collaboration in the Q&A
I
series.
know. I'm so excited. And it's a series, everyone. So definitely stay tuned. All right. So I think there was a little bit of a glitch, but I think we're good to go now. So I hope everyone can hear us and see us. And yeah, let's get started. So we wanted to do a little bit of an intro on, why we're actually doing and launching this series. And we both just noticed a few patterns out in the world. And I mean, this is really not new, but I think it probably got exacerbated. And, maybe you agree, Nicholas, in just the last couple of years. I think things have just gotten so much more intense for everyone. And so a few things that we noticed is, one, there's an increasing rate of depression in the world. And I had noticed this before as I've been working with different clients, but even more so now. I think that everything that's been happening has made it worse. And then second, there's over 84% of people in the world that are actually chronically stressed at work right now. And maybe not just work, they're in their lives. And so, they simultaneously feel overwhelmed, anxious, and all of the different, emotions that, keep you low vibe. So I think those are some of them. And then I think, Nicholas, you had a couple more.
I mean, in general, we have the lockdown situation around the world, and I
Yeah.
think that made things even worse. But generally spoken, I was actually quite surprised because I can actually read it off for you if you want to. I got the statistics from the Flow Research Collective here.
Yeah.
And again, I'm mostly a high performance coach, but then again, 84% of people are stressed, like you said. That's basically a big thing. But I think what I also want to point out is there's a lot in terms of high performance that is surprisingly not optimized, in fact. Uh, for example, the average person seems to work 2.3 hours a day, focused. And if you look at this, the average person has 11 minutes of focus per day.
Wow.
And what does that mean? That means
Wow.
that we are constantly disrupted. And in fact, looking at the statistics here, it would mean that the average person is disrupted 56 times a day. The average person spends 36 hours in unnecessary meetings per week. This is insane. That's over an
I can
entire.
attest to that.
Oh yeah. Emails are horrible. I remember back then at GSK when I was with my supervisor. He came back from holidays and just showed me his email inbox. I think he had over 1,000 emails, and he said he got those in a single day. I was like, holy cow, because
Wow.
just clicking on them takes several hours. And in fact, we have 36 email checks per hour. So this
Insane. And
it's
that probably doesn't include the notifications that we get on our phones, right? The constant, like, hey, pay attention to me. Look at me, right?
definitely. I mean, just looking at it, I have the statistics as well. Social media, we spend 144 minutes on social media per day. That's over 2 hours. And if you sum that up over the week, that is easily an entire work day that you lose just scrolling on your phone to look at those wonderful cat videos that we all love, of course. So, once again, these are all things that are just piling up over the course of the day. But also, from the perspective of high performance, it means that you lose all of this time. And then, once again, that's where overwhelm, anxiety, and all of these things come in because then
Yeah,
again, you don't have this time. You don't have this time to do your work, and you don't have this time to enjoy yourself. So, once
exactly.
again, overwhelm. That's where it all begins.
It's nuts.
I think we briefly talked about it before, but I think that's a big point I want to mention as well, and that's the fact that excessive hurrying is actually a disease. It's called hurry sickness. And I think the first time I read it, I was like, what the hell? But it's actually a medical condition, hurry sickness. You can look up the term if you don't believe me, by the way, also for the audience. But hurry sickness is really, it means that you speak excessively fast, you think excessively fast, you interrupt people because you have the feeling that you run out of time, uh, such things, for example. And once again, this can be chronic, this can become a disease. And given
That's
that,
so interesting. because I always thought that that was a New Yorker thing, because I live in New York, and so I thought, okay, everybody here just rushes with everything, so it's, and then I thought, okay, maybe it's a US thing, maybe because we're chronically known for overworking, but now it's way bigger than this. It's not one country, it's worldwide, right?
I mean, the very fact that we have this defined as a disease now means that it's probably more common than we think.
Yeah.
So it's not just in movies, it's actually
Insane.
reality. And it's also the thing that you have this overwhelm anxiety. So the day to day, if it feels troublesome, if you're looking forward to the weekend, if you don't like your work in addition to that, if you want to have a vacation, if you feel like you're in need of a vacation, all of these things, I think if you feel that, then it might be a good idea to have a new outlook. And I think that is what our today's Q&A is actually for, because we have you as well, Teany, as a purpose and passion coach. And I think it all starts with that, in fact. High performance starts with knowing your why. And on the other hand, also to have the feeling that your day is actually fruitful, to have the feeling that your day is not troublesome, to start enjoying your work. That also means that you know your purpose, you know what you do, and you know why you do it. And again, that is where it all begins. I think that would be a nice segue to introduce yourself, don't you think?
I love it. I love it. And I just wanted to mention one thing, because you talked about vacations, and I love talking about how people use vacations to vacate their lives. I wrote a whole post on that because I think it's so critical for people to know that you can't leave and think that it's all going to go away, that it's all going to get fixed while you're gone, because you're basically leaving whatever you left the same way, when you come back. So just something to think about as you go on vacation. But yeah, so I am Teany, and I'm an expert in purpose and burnout coaching. And I'm basically going to be sharing some research, my personal life stories, and some of my client stories, as well as some hands-on experience of just, some of the clients that I've been working with, and how all of what their stories are resonates with what Nicholas has been talking about. All the numbers are real, and it's really showing up in how, our clients are experiencing the world right now, with stress, with overwhelm, with burnout, and all these things. So, yeah.
From my end, of course, I'm Nicholas once again, and I'm a neuroscientist. So my actual profession is that I'm actually a dementia researcher. So in other words, I'm finishing my PhD degree to develop a drug to treat Alzheimer's disease and memory loss. But in addition to that, I'm also a high performance and flow coach. Now, flow is basically this brain state in which you're so deeply focused on what you're doing that you forget everything else. So video gaming is a good example, which I like to bring up. If you do video gaming, you most likely do. I've done it myself for hours and hours when I was when I was a child, in fact. But 5 hours can feel like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
This is, in fact, because one of the brain areas called the prefrontal cortex, that's where we do logical thought, where we start to perceive the world, is actually inactivated in flow. So in this flow state, again, you pretty much act automatic, and you show extremely increased performance. You show more meaning, more fulfillment. Again, I can pull out the statistics, but in flow, you have a 500% productivity increase, 430% creativity increase, meaning and fulfillment plus 200%. That's because you enjoy so deeply what you do that you don't want to stop it. You don't even want to go to the toilet. I mean, you might know that if you're so deeply immersed into something, you just don't want to get away from the freaking screen, for example. And yeah, once again, I've looked at this. I actually went to the Flow Holistic Collective to learn about flow and also to be able to teach it. And that is what I do basically. I'm a neuroscientist. I do my little lab work with my brain cells basically in the lab. And on the other hand, I'm a coach. So I'm here to help you guys become your very best self. And it also involves to get you into flow.
I love that. You have the practical and the scientific. You have it all working out. That's awesome.
basically.
Cool. So I think that throughout this, we're going to be we're going to be asking some questions, and then we're going to go into some client stories and anecdotes. So let's get started, shall we?
Definitely. Now, first and foremost, Teany, I would like to hear a bit about you. And that is what actually made you a burnout coach. What made you a passion and purpose coach?
Yeah. So I think it's probably, I experienced what everyone is experiencing now, way back in like 2007, 2008. I think that's when the recession was happening here. And things were just getting a little bit crazy. But also, I was at the point where I'd been working for 7 or 8 years already in a big corporation, and I was exhausted, basically. I was working really long hours. I was carrying a heavy laptop to work every single day, commuting into the city, and I live maybe 45 minutes to an hour away. So taking the train every single day, but also just the mental strain of everything that I was doing, coupled with the physical work of having to commute into the city. It was just too much, and I think that that's a lot of what people are experiencing right now, that everything is weighing down on them. And that's how I felt, like everything was just overwhelming. And then there's so many things that were happening, right? I wasn't able to emotionally process what I was experiencing, like, in my mind and in my emotions, but also physically. I was literally in pain. Like my shoulder was hurting so much just from carrying the laptop to work, from sitting at a desk for like 8, 9 hours a day. And so all of that was just tremendous. And so I sought help. And the first person I saw was actually something physical, because it's funny how that works, right? We always notice the things that causes physical pain, and that's what we always address first. But usually, in my opinion, there's always a psychological, emotional, underlying reason. So I went to seek help, and so I went to a chiropractor, and I got a massage therapist as well. So that kind of started my journey of understanding even just my body and understanding what I was doing from a physical level. And from that, it turned into, I was asking so many questions, and I was trying to understand my body and what can I do at home to avoid this from happening, and all these questions. And my chiropractor actually said to me, you should become a chiropractor or do something like that, right? And I didn't really want to do that, but I actually did end up doing massage therapy school. And then from that, I started supporting a lot of my clients on the table, with their personal lives, because I understood them, right? Like I had come from that place of exhaustion and overwhelm, and relationship difficulties and all these different things. And so it's kind of like I was telling Nicholas the other day, like it's like when you go to get your hair done, and you're talking to your hairstylist, and your hairstyle, you're telling them all these stories, and you're getting deep into your life. That's how I felt when I was treating my clients. And so that turned into getting into the Tony Robbins world and becoming, going through his program and learning more coaching. And all of that to say that all of those things coupled together just inspired me to really support people with the stuff that I personally had experienced firsthand, including depression when I was in school, um, you know, burnout, like I said, throughout several times in my corporate life. And all of that, kind of turned into just a mission to support people with getting more in touch with their purpose and their meaning, like you were mentioning, Nicholas, and just really understanding why they're here and bringing more meaning into their lives so that they actually enjoy waking up every morning and, bringing in fun things, fun people, fun activities, fun jobs, and all these things, and making them really, worthwhile. So that's where I come from.
It's a really nice transition. How you applied massages to reduce your stress level, and that's actually proven, in fact, because it can reduce the amount of norepinephrine. So that's the main stress hormone. It's actually norepinephrine and cortisol, but norepinephrine is actually what causes anxiety. A little bit of it is good, but if you have too much of it, if you're chronically stressed, if you have chronically too much of adrenaline and norepinephrine in your system, then you feel the negative effects. Again, you feel the
Right.
anxiety, you feel restless, you feel like you cannot switch off anymore. And I really like how you applied these methods, actually, how you figured it out, and also how you figured out the connection between how you feel and how your body responds to it. So
Yeah,
body and mind are connected. You cannot separate both.
absolutely. It's funny because I've had several clients when I was doing massage work on my table who would cry because your body actually holds on to your emotions. So pain isn't just pain, it's actually energy from your emotions and your mind that's trapped in your body also, along with physical whatever you did to it, right? So I would have clients cry on the table or, just make noises and things like that because it's like their body releasing whatever was happening. So it's quite interesting.
Sounds like suppression.
Yeah,
The best way to make it worse is to suppress your emotions.
absolutely. It's true. How about you, my friend? What's your backstory?
Me? Now, actually, it all started, it came together like it was in your case, basically. Now, first and foremost, I'm mainly a dementia researcher. That was what I had in mind first. And my interest in the brain actually came from my grandmother because she developed dementia. It's actually a funny thing.
Interesting.
Now, my grandma in her 80s, actually, she started to get weird. Let's call it like that, because there were a few small things here and there that just appeared out of nothing, but they were really weird to me, especially as a kid. And one of these things was her eating habits, because all she ate was, for example, Tuk crackers. Maybe you know them, the Tuk crackers with ketchup.
Hmm.
Tuk crackers and ketchup. That's the only thing she ate, basically. So not very nutritious.
Interesting.
But also other small things, like when I was playing outside and she was just looking through the fence. There was a little gap in the fence and she was always looking through. And even when we noticed her, she continued staring at us, which is really funny. And other things like shopping. I'm not kidding. Every Wednesday, my dad was like, Wednesday again. I have to go shopping with grandma. And it's not a joke. She needed 3 hours, also because she was just getting lost everywhere. She didn't even remember what she was about to buy. So this is where the small things came. The personality changes kicked in. Then, of course, the memory issues that she had. And I think the main thing was that at the end, the last time I saw her, the last words she said to me were actually, "Oh, I know you." That was
Mm,
literally the last thing she said to me. And that made me think, and it's just a fact, what happens to you if your brain is messed up? What happens to you as a person? What happens to all of your memories? Because you have to consider that your brain, it's the way you perceive the world. And what happens when this is changed, when this is messed up? And I think it's just this curiosity basically into the brain and how it affects our lives that made me a dementia researcher, made me study it. I actually saved my money to come here to England to study, so I was pretty much broke when I came here. But I got it done, so here I am. Here we go. Here we're studying. And
nice.
I think alongside that, on the other hand, I have the biological side, of course. That means I want to help people who suffer from dementia or memory loss or brain damage. But there was another thing, and that was actually that I suffer from depression. And it was so bad that I was actually institutionalized when I was 17 years old. So that was a very early event in my life, but also an event that changed the way I approach life now. Because I think bad things happen for a reason. And it's the very concept of anti-fragility, if you have ever heard of it. Anti-fragility is the art to become better in response to adversity. So when shit happens, you become better as a consequence because of the lessons that you learn, the changes that you make, that you normally only make when shit happens. Then you
Right.
have a reason to change. And in my case, depression, it taught me that simply I want to help other people with it as well. Because I had to turn my life 180 at this point. I was stuck. I was basically locked down in a little apartment for 4 months, worse than lockdown, in fact. And yeah,
Wow.
that's when you have to confront yourself, with your own thoughts. And again, finding your purpose. Once again, what is actually the point of being here? And I think all of these things, it came then together. It was in the back of my mind. I never really approached it. I mean, I was looking after my dementia research. That was my main point. But I think I mentioned it. I was actually
Yeah.
a fan of Brandon Burchard because high performance was always my thing. Pushing hard, becoming better, becoming or being efficient. That has always been me. Also, the case of perfectionism, especially as a child. That was one of the reasons why I ended up in the clinic, by the way. But then again, it's just, again, I read Brandon Burchard's books, and that's when I became inspired to actually become a coach myself.
That's
And
awesome. He's a great coach. So it's a good example, a good mentor.
I remember I was actually reading his book, watching one of his, I don't even remember which video exactly it was, but after I watched this video, I was like, you know what? Why not doing it myself? And 2 months later, I started posting on LinkedIn. And fast forward, here we are now. I ended up joining the Flow Research Collective to learn about the neuroscience of flow. It was also just a coincidence. But then again, I wanted to become a coach, and I was like, you know what? I'm a neuroscientist, and there's this state called flow, in which you're so deeply immersed into what you're doing that your productivity skyrockets, your meaning and fulfillment go up. And it's just the idea, you know, what happens if we get more people into this flow state? What if more people become extremely productive? What if more people find meaning and fulfillment in what they do by getting into this flow state? And that it all came together basically. Here I am now, high
I
performance
love
coach,
that.
neuroscientist.
Nice. I love that. And I think it's pretty cool that, you know, we both come from different perspective, but we have a lot of similarities. Like we both went to depression through a moment and how we turned it around. I forgot what you called it when you go through shit and you turn it around.
Anti-fragility, that's the
Anti-fragility.
psychological
Yeah.
term.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people misinterpret that as, you know, like the hardest times in their lives and they just leave it there, right? As the hardest times, and they never see the wisdom and the lesson and the good things that actually those moments provide. I call that turning pain to passion, because a lot of times those pains actually end up becoming your purpose and they end up giving you more meaning. And just like both of us, right? We sort of turned our hardships into a career pretty much, and you turned it into schooling. I turned it into schooling also, to learn a different way to support people so that they don't have to go through the same things that we did. So love it.
I think that's the main thing most people need to realize, that this exposure makes you better. If you never confront yourself with your inner demons, you will never be able to do it, and you will never get to the next level. Because elite performers, they have done this. Elite performers have overcome a big struggle in their lives. Every good coach in existence is a good coach because they've gone through some shit. They have had a transformation. So I think the idea is not to see it as something that is a burden to you, but it's something that is a requirement in order to become better even. Because if you want to really reach those high levels, if you want to reach those high levels of purpose, happiness, meaning, and fulfillment, then you need to tackle those things. You cannot just avoid pain. You cannot just hide yourself. You need to take action at some point.
Absolutely. So cool. So that leads me to a question for you then. What pivot points have you noticed in people that actually prompt them to desire to sort of avoid burnout, right? And become more high performance?
I think there are actually two types of people out there, you could say. The first type of people are those people, A-type personality, you could say, that are very driven. So those people, they're constantly looking to improve themselves. I was one of these people as well, just very driven, very high performance focused, the A-type personality, push, 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 get it done. And those people, they are more open to do things that make them better. I see that as well. I have clients that actually know that they have issues. They know even what's wrong with them, and they are so deeply driven that they came to me uh, in order to become better, to fix the issues. So these are the highly driven people. There are some out there like myself, that simply want to reach the next level. And those people are also willing to implement what is needed to make their life better.
Yep.
But it's not so many. Not everyone is super driven, A-type push personality. Most people are just in the middle. They are just caught in their day-to-day life, and they never even think about taking action or changing things. Also because there's a lack of awareness. I think it's also what you generally see. It's just, again, you don't notice it. You simply don't notice if you're stuck. You don't notice if you're depressed. That's why most people, it takes them so long to actually do something, because they just don't take it. And I think that is the main thing, because there's usually a point where you break. There's usually, after several years, after extreme stress, after overwhelm, there is that point, at one point in your career, where it's just too much. It's like the good old saying that you can hit a rock 99 times, but the 100th time it breaks. And it's exactly the same with everything else. It's the same with high performance, it's the same with burnout. At one day, it just hits. You're in activity, at some point, again, it messes up, it piles up, I mean. But at some point, you just have the day where it strikes you. Actually, I had this with one of my clients, just to mention it. One of my clients, she went through a lot of stress, had very difficult situation in work, was constantly overwhelmed. She constantly felt like she was the only one looking for her clients, but she also felt like she couldn't help them. And constantly working, doing her nails in the metro even. She even had a disease that got her out of her job. She came back, she was continuing to work, but one day she came in, her manager, which was very poor by the way, asked her, "How are you doing?" And this one question made her leave. Just this one harmless question, "How are you doing?" And that was it. That was too
Wow.
much. And then she left. So once again, it's just, don't wait until it happens. Take action now. That is the only thing I
Absolutely.
can say.
I love what you said. I feel like that moment was probably like the last straw for her, right? It was like, how dare you ask me how I'm doing? I'm doing terrible. Goodbye, right? But I think a lot of times when that happens, it's because one of the things that you and I spoke about, which is one of the biggest things I think that people, it blocks them from really truly living a better life, is that they really don't trust themselves. They kind of trust everything outside of themselves to tell them how successful they are, to tell them how happy they are, to tell them how to live their lives. Like, and this is true of all of us as well, right? Like, we trust our parents, we trust our doctors, we trust, our bosses, our friends, our family, all these different things. And so we're constantly outside of ourselves. And that's how we let all these things happen to us, not us happening with the world, right? And us influencing the world to make our lives better. And so if we were actually more present, and we'll talk about this later, I guess, with mindfulness practices and things like that, the more in your body you are, and the more present you are, the more aware and intuitive and wise with your own self and your own body you are. And then those things never happen, because you're so hyper aware of yourself, what you desire, what's going well, what isn't going well, what you're in alignment with, what you're not in alignment with, that you know exactly the steps to take. You know exactly how you feel, what hurts and what doesn't hurt, right? So those things never happen. So I think that's really important to know.
Very important what you point out, mindfulness.
Yep.
Mindfulness sounds like this voodoo thing that only weak people do, meditation, etc. But the exact opposite is the case. Every high performer, every elite performer is very self-aware. They know exactly what is happening to them. They know their own thoughts. They know their own emotions. They know when things are going well and not. And they know when they have to take a step back. They know when they can accelerate. So having high self-awareness is mandatory. It's not, if you want to be a peak performer, if you want to be happy, if you want to be generally have a good life, then you need self-awareness. You cannot skip this.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
now moving on to the next question, I have one for you that really interests me, in fact, and that is reasons for burnout. What would you say are actually reasons that people hit the point where it's just too much? What is your personal
So
experience?
So it's funny because I've done a lot of research on this. I've discovered things for my on my own. And then I also did some research with the Harvard Business Review, and there's just, Psychology Today. There's just a lot of information out there, but I actually did narrow it down. There's about six. And I think you and I talked about this. There are six, but actually I think there are seven, because I think there's one that probably wasn't listed there that I think it's important to think about. So the six are, well, one, workload, because
Mm.
overwhelm, responsibility in work and life is just, that's, kind of like what we've been talking about, right? Like just everything coming at you, everything piling up, all of that stuff together leads to overwhelm and the ability to not know how to manage it, right? So it's workload coupled with that.
Now, a quick note here. I think work overload, that's what people generally assume burnout is. But the
Right.
reality is, it's not necessarily the case, because you can also see it from another perspective. There are guys like Elon Musk who work 80 hours a week. Now, I don't recommend that you should do that, but he has been doing that for years and years. And the reason why he's able to actually have this extreme workload, why he can sustain this in the long term, is because he has his purpose and passion down. He knows why he's doing the things he's doing. So he approaches his work, he doesn't see his work as a burden, but he sees his work as something that he wants to do. I mean, I watched a lot of interviews, and he actually dislikes eating because it wastes his time. So he always tries to optimize his days so that he can work more. So once again, work overload is mostly a problem, in my opinion, when you see it in a negative way. There are, of course, limits to this. You shouldn't go crazy in ham. I don't say that. It's just the fact that the way you look at the work you're doing day in and day out makes a huge difference. But please
Absolutely.
go on.
Yep. Emotional connection. Absolutely. The second one is lack of control over your situation and finding that you can't change it or fix it, which I think is not true, right? Because you feel it. It's a sign that things are going crazy, but it's because, again, you're not in tune with yourself. But I'm curious to know what you think about that.
I think lack of control is simply the fact that, yeah, autonomy. Did you know that autonomy is actually a way to increase dopamine in your brain? Again,
Mm,
dopamine is this rewards chemical, and we all desire autonomy. Autonomy means that we are the steerer of our own ship. So we sail our own ship, we say into what direction it goes, basically. And not being able to control, having a lack of control, that is actually fear we all have. We hate uncertainty. It makes sense, right? If you don't know what's
mm-hmm.
going to happen, you want to have certainty because you crave certainty. You crave, again, being able to control things. Autonomy, it's a natural desire that we all have. I have it as well.
Yeah.
So once
Yeah.
again, I think that's a big point here
Yeah.
that we should mention. And generally, having lack of control in your job, that is probably what messes you up.
I think so, yeah. But it's interesting because the whole idea of lack of control, and Tony Robbins talks about certainty, but he also says that people like surprises, the surprises that they know are coming, right? When you know that there's a surprise that you're gonna like, yeah, bring it, right? But when it's a surprise that actually causes something bad to happen in your life, you don't like it that way. But actually, surprises are fun and good, and they kind of keep you on your toes. So in a way, lack of control is not necessarily a bad thing.
It's definitely not. Now, one of the things I probably go a bit into flow research here, but what you need to know is that uh, ambiguity is actually a flow trigger. So ambiguity, when things feel uncertain to you, feel weird to you, it drives you. It actually gets you into this flow state, this hyper-focused state. This is one of the triggers for flow. That's also what many people don't know. But even though lack of control gets you into this hyper-focused state, we still desire the lack of control. We desire
Hmm.
control, sorry. So we get into this hyper-focused state in order to get control back. So from a high performance perspective, lack of control is useful. But if you constantly have lack of control in your life, if you never feel like you have any chance to control the things in your life, if things just happen to you, if you're just overloaded with work, then it can cause anxiety, then it can
Yeah.
cause depression even. So it's, again, high performance is all about managing things. So I
Yeah.
think that's a skill, but we can talk about this in another episode potentially, because
For
there are
sure.
many factors you could talk about.
Yeah,
That
for sure.
aside, what other
Okay.
reasons do you have?
So the next one is fairness. So fair and equal treatment for the work that you do, and lack of praise. And I feel more deeply it's about being seen and often acknowledged, for your own self-worth, to ask for the things that you want. And I think that actually happens a lot, and I've seen it a lot at work, um, where people feel like they're given a whole lot of work at work, and it's unevenly distributed, or that even acknowledgement for the work that you've done, you're not seen for it. The upper level managers are, given the accolades for the work the 10 people underneath did, things like that. So that definitely plays a role into that. But I also think that it's like I said, it's about your own worthiness also, and one putting yourself in a job, role, relationship, whatever, that you feel is worthy of you, because you feel worthy in yourself. So I like to talk about self-worth a lot, because I think that goes along with self-trust, right? And what I was talking about before, just knowing yourself and knowing what situations to put yourself in, and also knowing when to speak up, that can support you getting out of unfair situations. What do you
I
think
think
about that?
I think it goes back to lack of control. Basically, if you feel like you have no influence about what happens to you whatsoever, that's a way for depression. If you feel like just shit happens to you and you cannot change it. The way I look at it is very simple. The best way to get rid of anxiety is to take action. As simple as it sounds. And
Yeah,
speaking up, like you said, speaking up when things are unfair, that's the only way to make things less unfair.
yeah, absolutely. Um, cool. So let me talk about 4 and 5, because I actually think they're related to each other. So 4 is reward, right? Which is if the work doesn't match your desired reward. And 5 is the values mismatch. So at a company where you're working, where you're doing some work at the deeper level, it means for me a disconnection between your meaning and purpose. Um, which is causing you to feel disassociated from the work, disconnected from the people you're working with, depressed, even like, why am I here? Like all those feelings. And I think that goes along with the reward, because if you're doing work that is meaningless to you, then you're not going to care. There is no reward, right? So they're kind of related with each other, because it all relates to your values and the meaning that you actually give to the work that you're doing.
Definitely.
Thoughts on that? Go ahead.
Now with the reward, it's always, I made a few videos about being rewarded, but again, we all crave acknowledgement. It's actually it's one of the big desires we all have, to feel acknowledged
Yep.
for our work, of course. And once again, it goes back to unfairness. If you're not feeling like you get a reward for what you're doing, if you put in a lot of work, hard effort, if you work hours and hours and hours and it all feels wasted to you, that's a way to get into depression.
Yep.
You feel like you're wasting your life away. You're doing things for nothing. And once again, that's why purpose is so important. Knowing why you do it and what you do it for. Because it also makes you less susceptible to that. Makes you less susceptible to crave a reward if you know that you're doing it for a specific purpose.
Absolutely. I can
For
talk about
example,
purpose all day. I think we're going to do another something else on this. So we won't get into the weeds with that one. But yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so the last one is about community and relationships, which is feeling a lack of trust and support at work and with the people around you. And it's funny because there's a book called The Blue Zones. And the Blue Zones was basically a big research project about the people who lived over 100 years old. I don't know if you know that book, Nicholas. It's super, super interesting.
I would have to
Um,
check it out.
yeah, I think it's the author was Dan Millman. I'll post a link for it. But he talked about community and
Mm,
how having community was one of the factors that allowed people to live to over 100 years old, because they created that sense of connection and, again, meaning, right, between the people that were in the community. And so when you're feeling disconnected, and when you're feeling that people are not in your corner, so to speak, then yeah, there's going to be sort of like, you're going to feel alone, right? You're going to feel like you're not integrated into society, and why would you want to be here? Interestingly, in massage therapy, there was another research article that talked about touch therapy and babies. And there was an article, research that was done about children who didn't receive as much touch and children who did, and how later in life they became sociopaths and things like that, because they didn't feel that connection and that touch. And for us as humans, right, like touch is such a significant part of communication, right? Like visual, physical, and all those things, but also even touching, especially in my culture, like I'm Hispanic, so hugging and kissing, all those things are so important for us. And so when we don't get those things, if it feels, we feel off, we feel disconnected from people. And so in the last 2 years, right, what have we had to do? We've had to completely disconnect from everyone. We haven't been able to see people, we haven't been able to touch them, let alone hug them or anything else. So I think that's a big reason for people to feel burnout as well, just of feeling a lack of disconnection with, their community and having proper relationships with people. Your thoughts on that?
absolutely. Let me give you a few cool brain facts here.
Yeah.
First and foremost, why do you think our brain is twice the size of that of animals? The reason is because we have additional brain structures for social connections. So our brain, again, twice the size of an animal because we have additional brain structures just for socializing. And what you also need to know is that loneliness, so being alone, is considered a survival risk by the brain. So when you feel alone, then your brain makes you very aware of the fact uh, that you have a problem, because it used to be the case that if you are alone, if there's no one looking for you, then you are about to die most likely. And your brain knows that. So your brain classifies being alone as a survival risk. And that is why it's so important for us to connect to other people. Because again, it's just this evolutionary desire of feeling safe, of being with other people. And also because we instinctively know that being alone is probably not good for us. We
Yeah.
might even die if we're alone.
For survival, right?
Survival, exactly. And there's also this little neurochemical called oxytocin. So oxytocin, like you said, is released when we are hugging, when we're touching other people, when we're talking to other people. And oxytocin, it makes us bond with each other. Uh, and it has a little nice effect, oxytocin, because oxytocin, when you get in contact with other people, it not only makes you feel good, but it also releases dopamine. Dopamine is the reward chemical. And funny
Right.
enough, your brain rewards you for interacting with other people. Isn't that fun?
Ah, of course. Makes
So,
sense.
so you get oxytocin, you get dopamine release in your brain when you interact with other people. And your brain knows why. Your brain rewards you for interacting and communicating with other people. Because again, if you work with other people, your chances of survival are higher. Your chances of having a breakthrough, for example, at work, are higher when you work in a group. That's why we all naturally have the desire to be with people. And I think if you ignore that, it will not be good for you, because loneliness is actually shown in studies to increase. I think you die over 7 years quicker if you're alone easily. So
Wow.
that's proven in studies. So once again, for high performance, for your mental health, you need to be with other people, whether you want or not. You need to.
I find that interesting because there's a lot of people who are very introverted, right?
Mm,
And their personalities are just prone to being alone. I have a very close family member who's like that, but the way she says it, she says it's. I think, and I've read this recently as well. It's not that they want to be alone all the time; is that they get overwhelmed with being around too many people. So I
mm,
think part of that is also knowing your limits and knowing yourself, and how much interactivity you can actually receive at any given time. So I wouldn't put an introverted person in the middle of a party, but maybe that introverted person, like this person I know, likes to do one-on-ones, right? So those one-on-ones are enough interaction for her to get that fulfillment in the relationship and community without blowing the top off and getting too much, right?
You
So
made
it's
a
also
very
knowing
important point here, just to point this out real quick. You need to know how much social interaction you need, and it's different for every person. I'm an introvert myself, and I can get away with as little as maybe 3 hours of social interactions a week. I've tested that, so I don't need much to be good, because frankly spoken, again, as an introvert, you just want to be alone sometimes. At the end of the day, I just want to be by myself. I don't care. But there's a certain amount of interactions even I need. And if I don't get it, then I feel lonely. Then I feel uncomfortable, depressed even. So as an extrovert, you probably need more than that. 3 hours of social interactions a week will not get you into a peak performance state. So it's really about knowing how much social interaction do I need. And the moment you pay attention to
Yep.
that, the moment you're aware of that,
I love it.
once
And that
again,
actually, and
self-awareness,
I
that's
love it. And this brings me to the next one, which
go
is
ahead.
number 7, unless you had something else to say.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. So those are the 6, but I actually think there's a 7th, which is the inability or not knowing how to emotionally process and self-correct and decompress and do all those things that actually support your wellness. I think that this goes along with what I've been saying, which is when you are grounded in yourself, mindful in your own body, meditating and doing all these things, you're hyper aware of your own self. And I think that a lot of people are so, again, outside of themselves. They allow life to happen and they allow themselves to emotionally get out of whack, right? So they don't know how to process all of the things that they're experiencing throughout the day. And so they vacate their lives through vacation, right? They oversleep to think that that's going to help them process everything, which it doesn't, right? And oftentimes they don't make room for exercise. I mean, we could go on and on. I'm sure you have a list of I call them CEO habits. You probably call them high performance habits. All the things that you need to do to really feel more in alignment with, how to process your emotions and live a healthy lifestyle and high performance life, right?
I like your point. Definitely makes sense. If you're not able to process your emotions, you will have trouble when something bad happens, something very sad. If you're not able to process sadness, then you will not be able to be back in the game.
Yeah.
And again, the better your ability is to process your emotions, the quicker you will be back. And the quicker you will be able to make progress again. I actually see this a lot with elite performers in the gym, funny enough, because when you do powerlifting, what you will notice is that you need to hold your breath. You need to load, for example, if you squat, you need to load a huge amount of weight on your back. You squat and you need to hold your breath. And what you will notice is that the feeling of panic is coming up. This feeling of panic is, again, if you just hold your breath for a long time, you of course will get it. And what you learn as a powerlifter is that you get used to this feeling of panic. You know how to process it so you can tolerate it better. And there's actually an exercise that I do with my clients, and that is box breathing. That means that you breathe in slowly for 7 seconds, you hold it 7 seconds, you exhale 7 seconds, etc. And it causes this very same feeling of panic. I actually did that with my clients, and some of them said it's really difficult for them to actually do this because, again, this panic feeling is coming up. And I remember that when I did this the first time, I was like, whatever. And the reason why is because of strength training, because I was used to that. Because you cannot panic in the middle of doing an exercise, otherwise the weight would crush you, basically. And you have to train when you feel bad as well. And it's all coming together, basically. So you need to be able to process your emotions.
That's
Like you said,
fascinating, that exercise, because in mindfulness meditation and all that, and I do a lot of like a little slightly more esoteric stuff, which with chakra work and things like that. and prana is your life
My
force
apologies.
energy.
We got a guest. Sorry for that.
No worries.
That's
So
what you
we
have to.
call
Fortunately,
we call your breathing life force energy. So, you know, most people are not in touch with their breath, right? Which is so critical to even meditating. And, you know, there's Kundalini yoga, which is really well known for a breath of fire and all these different things that actually bring more energy into your body. And so breath actually is crucial to balancing your energy in your body. And, you know, it's pivotal, so important.
In this context, just real quick, breath work, what it does is activate your parasympathetic nervous system. So your parasympathetic nervous system is the part of your body that's causing relaxation. And you have the other one, which is the sympathetic, that's the arousal, that's active, the stressed state, you could say. And breath work is actually a way to activate this resting state in your body, the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's not some voodoo stuff that we are talking about here. Breath work actually has effects. It has biological effects that make
Yeah.
you more relaxed.
Absolutely. Love it.
All right.
Okay.
Now, that said, how about tools? Because since we've been talking about, how to stay more relaxed, we've been talking about burnout, but what would you say? I mean, you probably had a lot of clients. Let's imagine you have a client with burnout.
Yeah.
What would you make them do? Is there something that they could do in order to become less stressed or to be less?
Absolutely. So I think you and I are gonna we have like two sides of the same coin. So for me, I go through the three pillars in my business, which is simplification, amplification, and fortification. And so I'll talk a little bit about simplification, which I think is probably one of the most crucial preliminary things that we need to do to even start to decompress our lives, which is simplification. And so with simplification, what I do with my clients is that I have them go through their wheel of life. And the wheel of life includes all the major areas that you think are important. So your health, your finances, your career, your relationships, enjoyment, going out and doing things and all those things. No problem. And so what I have them do is I have them rate where they are in those areas from 1 to 10. And then after they do that, they can see how wonky their wheel of life is. They can determine which areas are the sort of the most important for them. And they can determine, well, okay, if those are the most important areas of my life, what am I doing to actually satisfy those, right? Because a lot of what happens with burnout is also misalignment. We talked about values, right? And meaning and all these things. And so if your wheel of life is out of alignment because you're prioritizing things that actually aren't important to you, then that's what part of the reason why you're in burnout to begin with, right? So that's what I do. I start them with understanding their wheel of life, choosing two major areas to start focusing on, and then determining, what areas, what things are they doing to support that, and what things are actually getting in the way. And I think you're actually going to talk about the next piece to that, right? Which is elimination. And that's the other critical piece. So go ahead, talk about it.
Wonderful. I like the fact that you actually let people rate what is valuable for them, because it sounds so simple, I mean,
Yeah.
most of the times you're like, I know what's valuable for me. I know what I like. I mean, what the hell? But do you? Do you know what you actually value? Do you know what's actually important to you? Because most people never think about that. I see this
So
a lot.
true.
And I think that's very nice that if you really do what Teany says here, if you write what's really valuable for you, then you can move on to the next step, which I call elimination. Because let's say in your personal life, just do it. Sit down, maybe only takes you 10 minutes, I would say, and just list all of the things you do in your daily life. I mean, it could be anything. It could be cooking, it could be social media, it could be doing the laundry. But really think about, what do you actually do in a day? Because I'm pretty sure that you've never thought about that most of the times. It could also be gossiping even, or things like talking to other people, whatever it is. And yeah, once again, with Tiany's method, just rate it. How important is this actually for you? Do you really need to be at your phone for 2 hours a day? Is that really so important for you?
But Nicholas, that's my social interaction time. What do you mean?
2 hours a day, of course. You need all of it. Don't miss a single minute. I mean, there are categories.
I'm a social person, okay?
So once again, it's just really thinking critical about it. I mean, do you really need to watch all of the cat videos on Facebook? You know, that is one of the things I want to ask you, and that's why you really need to look on that.
All right, I'll cut it down to 10 minutes. Fine.
Actually, if you have 140 minutes per day and you cut it down to 10 minutes on your phone, you save 130 minutes. So you get 2 hours back every single day. Think about it, how much that is, how much amazing, juicy time you get.
Oh, man. I love this idea because I actually talk to my clients about this a lot. We have 24 hours in a day. And this is why I have people do, I call it a lifestyle audit as part of my simplification. So they can see how much wasted time they have. And it's funny to say it out loud, but it's so true. We have 24 hours. You spend about 8-9 hours at work, maybe a little more if you're commuting. You spend hopefully at least 7 to 8 hours sleeping. And then you have this gap of time, right? What are you doing with your time? Are you on social media? Are you watching TV for 3 or 4 hours a day, right? Like, what are you doing? And so I love when people say, I don't have time for this.
I love this one as well.
It's such a lie. There's always time.
I think that's the most important concept. If you have too much on your plate, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel like you have too much going on, then the only way to alleviate this load is to do less. You need to take things off of your plate. That's why eliminating always comes first. Always. You need to take off things off your plate if you cannot breathe anymore.
Yep.
So once again, just make your list, write it like Tiany said, then really decide what is actually important for me, what is not. And once you have this little list, one of the things I do with my clients is then just take the bottom 5 things that are not valuable for you. Could be anything. Actually, a common thing that is cut out is social media, in fact. And again, take the bottom 5 things and cut them out entirely. Don't do them anymore. And you do that for 2 months minimum. And it sounds harsh, but that's the point. You need to be harsh. Once again, you need to take things off of your plate. And the moment you do is the moment you have more room to breathe. And that's the moment you get the time back that you desire. And just really quick, you can also do it at your work. List all of the things you do. Determine the 4 or 5 things that are actually important to you, that actually get you closer to your goals, because it's usually only 4 to 5 things. And eliminate all of the other BS. I have to say, some of the things we do, like answering every single email under the sun, have no benefit for us. It feels nice to have a clean email. Account. That's the word I was looking for. So it's nice to not have any emails that are unopened, but is that really beneficial for you? Probably not.
Absolutely. I hope that was helpful, because I think for both of us, at least, that's been critical to do this simplification and elimination process. And this isn't something that you do it one and done. This is something actually that happens consistently as your life progresses, as your values and priorities change. Things happen in life. So it's something that you just have to do on a, semi-regular basis, basically, to continue to have you on track, right?
Absolutely. To give the final words here, productivity. Productivity is output divided by input. What you get divided by what you put in. You want to put in as little time as possible and get out as much as you can. So what most people don't know is that it makes sense though, but looking at it just perspective-wise, how do you increase your performance? Do you work more? Well, if you work more, then you put more in and your productivity goes down. On the other hand, if you cut back, if you do less, but you get it out the same, or if you do less and you get out even more, then your productivity increases.
Right.
And I think that is the point with our elimination tool, with our simplification tools. That's the whole point, to cut back on the things that are not relevant and increase the things that are relevant, because that's how you increase your productivity and that's how you get back the time that you desire to enjoy yourself.
Love it.
All right.
All right. So that was your final thought, yes?
That was my final thought on
Okay.
this episode.
And along on those lines, if I can just add to that, it would be in order to know how to balance that equation, you really need to sit with yourself, because it all begins inside. So I would say make it an exercise at least 10 minutes a day, whether it's a mindfulness practice and just being silent, whether it's deep breathing or whether it's a full out meditation. 10 minutes every morning. I mean, I do this every single morning. I do a more complex morning routine, but at least 10 minutes every morning just to sit with yourself and to, come into your own body and know what's truly in alignment for yourself. So
I do the same, just in form of journaling, self-improvement journaling.
that
And
works too.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, this was so much fun.
Definitely. It was a lot of fun.
We have 3 more, so we'll be posting about the next ones. And, for anyone who's watching the replay, feel free to type questions below and we'll definitely get to it. And we'll be posting on the different channels as well. So if you see it later on, please do let us know if you have any questions at all about the tools, the concepts, or anything.
Absolutely. I mean, we're always open to respond, guys. So just let us know your questions. That's all you need to do. And we will get back to you.
Yep. All right, guys. Love it. We'll see you in the next session, in the next series 2.
Absolutely. It'll be exciting.
Yes. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
And that concludes the video. So as always, thank you for your time and attention. And if you enjoyed the video and if you want to support the channel, please like, subscribe and share the video with your friends and those who could benefit from it, so that we can build an army of neuroscience and high performance enthusiasts together. I would strongly appreciate it. And as I mentioned in the beginning, if you have any questions for our second Dogma Breaker Q&A, which will be about the topic of happiness, please just drop your question in the comments, whatever it is, and we will make sure to answer them for you. Now, I enjoyed the discussion with Teany, and I hope that you took away some new insights and tools to become a better self. Now, that said, have a productive and burnout-resistant week, high performers, and I will see you in the next video.